Hey, this is Andrew Brown from Exam Pro, and we're at the start of our journey asking the most important question first, which is what is the AWS Certified Cloud Practitioner? So, the Cloud Practitioner is the entry level AWS certification teaching cloud fundamentals such as cloud concepts, architecture, deployment models. It will take a close look at AWS core services, a quick look at the vast amount of AWS services, and will cover topics like identity, security, governance, billing, pricing, support of AWS services. The course code for this exam is the CLF-C01, but it's commonly referred to as the CCP. And AWS is the leading cloud service provider in the world, and that makes the AWS Certified Cloud Practitioner the most common starting point for people breaking into the cloud industry, no matter what their path is. So, who is this certification for? Well, you should be considering the AWS Cloud Practitioner if you are new to cloud and need to learn the fundamentals, if you are in the executive, management, or sales level and you need to acquire strategic information about cloud for adoption or migration, or you are a senior cloud engineer or solutions architect who needs to reset or refresh their AWS knowledge after working for multiple years and just seeing how the landscape has changed. So, what value does this certification bring? Well, the AWS Certified Cloud Practitioner provides the most expansive view possible of cloud architectures in AWS. And when we're talking about that expansive view, what you should be thinking about is it being a bird's eye view or a 50,000-foot view looking onto a panoramic landscape where you can see everything. And the idea of this expansive view is to promote big picture thinking. So the idea here is you're zooming out and assessing the cloud AWS landscape for changes, trends, opportunities, and being strategic about the approach and process for our cloud journey. The AWS Cloud Practitioner is not a difficult exam. It will not validate that you can build cloud workloads. For technical implementation roles like a developer, engineer, DevOps role, it will not be enough to obtain a cloud role, but it can help shortlist your resumes for interviews. The exam covers content not found in other certifications, and it is recommended as an essential study for your AWS journey. So now let's take a look at the AWS Certification Roadmap to see where we would go after the Cloud Practitioner and what kind of cloud roles would be associated with those certifications. So at the start, you get your Cloud Practitioner, which is at the fundamental level. After that, we have the associate level, such as the SysOps administrator, the developer, and the solutions architect, followed by the professional level, the DevOps engineer, the solutions architect professional, and then the specialties such as security, advanced networking, database, machine learning, data analytics, and SAP, which just is not on here yet because it's such a new certification. So after the Cloud Practitioner, generally people will go for an associate, and it's up to you to choose one of the three because they're all great routes, but the most common one is the Solutions Architect Associate because the most common role in the industry is a cloud engineer. So even though it's called Solutions Architect, they really should have named it Cloud Engineer because that is really what it is. If you were to go the developer route, you're basically becoming a cloud developer. And then if you are going the SysOps admin route, you are becoming a junior DevOps engineer. And it's not uncommon for people to obtain all three associates. And a lot of the times the order will be the solution architect first because it's the easiest and has the broadest services, followed by the developer, which adds practical programming skills and lifecycle stuff of like deployment for apps, followed by the SysOps administrator, which is considered the hardest of the three in the associate tier. From there, you can go for the solutions architect professional, and that would be associated with a solutions architect or cloud architect role. That's basically like a harder version of the cloud engineer with a lot more responsibilities. If you were going the DevOps route, you'd go for the DevOps engineer professional. And so this would open you up to roles such as the DevOps engineer or the site reliability engineer, an SRE. And some people like to get both of the professionals. And that could be if you want to be a cloud architect or a DevOps engineer, because having adjacent skills in the professionals is always very useful. Now, you don't have to go for a professional after the associate. A lot of people will jump over to the specialties. And so when we're looking at the solutions architect, you basically have any pick after that. But generally what I see are people going for data analytics or machine learning. So for data analytics, this would be if you want to be a data analyst. Or if you're doing machine learning, this is where data scientists will go through the solutions architect route. Okay. For the junior DevOps, you could jump over to security and become a cloud security engineer. If you want to go into DevSecOps, so the automation of security operations, you probably want to get the DevOps engineer. Or you may be, if you're after the DevOps engineering, you might be transitioning to the advanced networking for roles like in Net DevOps, where you're specializing in migration, or hybrid engineer for architectures that both use on-premise and the cloud. From the DevOps engineer position, you can still go for the database or machine learning certification if you want to become either a data engineer or an ML ops engineer. So there's a lot of opportunities here, and there is no perfect route, but just these are suggestions for you to decide on your own, okay? So how long is it going to take to pass this certification? Well, it's going to really depend on your background, but if we had to generalize it, we can look at it as kind of a scale. And so if you are at the beginner level, you're looking at 30 hours of studying. And when we say beginner, we're saying someone that has never used AWS or any cloud provider, have never written code or held a tech role. And when we're looking at the other side of it, someone that is experienced, we're looking at a 6-hour study time. And when I say that, I'm talking about somebody that's watching on 2 times speed and are able to absorb this information very quickly. So they have practical working experience with AWS, or they have equivalent experience in another cloud service provider like Azure, GCP, where they can translate that knowledge, or they have a very strong background in technology where they've worked in the industry for many years. And so, their study time is going to be a lot shorter. And so on average, most people are going to take about 24 hours to study for this course. And when we talk about the kind of stuff that you'll be doing, it's going to be 50% lectures and labs. And we call our labs follow-alongs, where the idea is you follow along in your own account. And then 50% is the practice exams. So if you look at the length of the content, which is around 12 hours, then you should expect to spend as much time doing practice exams to pass, okay? And the recommended time to study is 1 to 2 hours a day for 14 days, okay? So what kind of effort are we going to have to put in to pass this exam? Well, you have to watch the lecture videos and memorize key information. You'll need to do hands-on labs and follow along with your own account, and you will need paid online practice exams that simulate the real exam. And the last two here were things that I used to never suggest because you could literally just watch the videos and pass. However, AWS has made this exam a lot more difficult. And so for these last 2 points, you do have to do these 2 things. For the paid online practice exams, that can be hard for some people. So I've made it easier for you by providing you a full free practice exam on Exam Pro at /CLF-C01. And so you just have to sign up, no credit card required, and you'll get a full set of 65 questions that simulate the real exam, okay? So for the contents of the exam, it is composed of 4 domains, and each domain has its own weighting, which determines how many questions in a domain that will appear. So for domain 1, which is cloud concepts, we're looking at 26%. For domain 2, security and compliance, we should expect to see 25% of the questions from there. For domain 3, which is technology, and where we will see the most amount of questions, we're sitting at 33%. For domain 4, billing and pricing, we have 16% of the exam there. So just to emphasize, for domain 3, you need to know a wide range of AWS services, but you also need to know in depth the core services. So where do you take the exam? Well, at an in-person test center or online from the convenience of your own home. AWS is partnered with 2 different test center networks, the first being PSI and the second being Pearson VUE, and they both offer in-person or online. And these exams are proctored, meaning there is somebody watching you to ensure that you are not cheating, okay? In order to pass this exam, you have to score 700 points out of 1,000. And so 700 generally equates to 70%, but it's around 70% because AWS uses scaled scoring, meaning that they could adjust it based on how many people are passing or failing. So always aim to get higher than 70%. The exam contains 65 questions, 50 scored and 15 unscored, and you can afford to get about 15 questions wrong. There is no penalty for wrong questions, so you should always choose an answer. And the questions come in 2 formats, multiple choice and multiple answers. For these unscored questions, there are 15 on the exam. They will not count towards your final score. Why is there unscored questions on the exam? Well, unscored questions are used to evaluate the introduction of new questions. They can determine if the exam is too easy and the passing score or question difficulty needs to be increased, and they can discover users who are attempting to cheat the exam or steal dump exam questions. So if you encounter questions you've never studied for that seem really hard, keep your cool and remember they may be unscored questions. The duration of this exam is 1.5 hours, so you have about 1.5 minutes per question. The exam time is 90 minutes, but the seat time is 120 minutes. Seat time refers to the amount of time you should allocate for the exam, so that means including things like time to review instructions, show online proctor your workspace, read and accept the NDA, and complete the exam and provide feedback. And when you do pass, this exam is valid for 36 months, and that equates to 3 years before recertification.